Story number 1. Whispers from the Past, The Haunting of Texas Lake House. It's a year I'll never forget. The events of that summer still send shivers down my spine every time I recall them. I was driving through the Texas suburbs with my college buddy, Lucas. We had hoped to spend a weekend camping near the lake and soaking in the serenity of nature. But destiny had other plans for us. As our car cruised along the winding roads, a ghostly apparition suddenly flashed before us. It was a fleeting image, a pale woman in tattered clothes, her eyes hollow. I swerved in shock, narrowly avoiding her. Lucas shouted, gripping his seat, as our car skidded off the road and rammed into a tree. Dazed, we emerged from the wreck, grateful to be alive but puzzled by what we'd seen. Our car was damaged beyond immediate repair. Left with no choice, we gathered our belongings and began trudging along the road, hoping to find some shelter. Night was approaching. After a couple of hours, we stumbled upon a house, almost hidden by the dense trees. It sat by the edge of the lake, its windows dimly lit. An old sign read, "Lakeview Inn." We approached, and the door was answered by a middle-aged man named Mr. Grayson, who introduced himself as the caretaker. With a warm, yet slightly somber smile, he offered us a room for the night. As Lucas and I settled in, we noticed another guest at the inn, a journalist named Clara. She was here on an assignment, investigating local legends. Over dinner, she shared that this forest and the nearby lake were known for strange occurrences, especially ghost sightings. I shared our harrowing experience, and she listened intently, jotting down notes. Late into the night, as Lucas and I tried to sleep, eerie sounds echoed from outside. We heard whispers, soft sobs, and the unmistakable splash of something entering the lake. Peering through the window, we saw ghostly figures hovering around the lake, their mournful expressions forever etched in time. In the morning, Clara introduced us to her friend, Sheriff Miller, who was aiding her in her research. He revealed that in the early 1900s, there had been a tragic accident in the area. A bus carrying workers to a nearby mining site had plunged into the lake, killing everyone on board. It was rumored that their restless spirits still lingered, causing accidents to serve as a grim reminder of the past. Intrigued and horrified, Lucas and I joined Clara and Sheriff Miller in their quest for answers. We explored old archives, interviewed locals, and even held a séance with a renowned psychic. The spirits communicated their anguish, revealing the negligence of the mining company that led to the catastrophe. They sought justice and recognition. With Clara's journalistic prowess, we brought the forgotten tragedy to light. Memorials were erected in honor of the lost souls, and the mining company was held accountable, even after all these years. As the spirits found solace, the haunting ceased. Lucas and I left the Lakeview Inn with heavy hearts, forever changed by the experience. Today, as I share this memory, I remember the lost souls and hope that they've finally found peace. And every time I drive down that road, I pay my respects to those who once walked it, their stories forever echoing in the whispers from the past. Story number 2. The Shadows of Echo Lake, a haunting in suburban New York. It was the summer of 2002 when my life took a turn for the extraordinary. A trip meant for relaxation became a journey into the supernatural, the memories of which still haunt me. Emma, my fiancée, and I were driving down a picturesque road in suburban New York. We had planned a weekend getaway in the Catskills. The day had been uneventful, until a chilling specter suddenly appeared on the road. The ghost, a man in old-fashioned attire, stared into our souls with sorrowful eyes. Panic set in. I swerved, barely missing him, but our car skidded and hit a lamppost. The front of the car was dented. We were stranded. As dusk set in, we noticed a house nestled among the trees, overlooking a serene lake. A faint sign identified it as Echo Lake Inn. Seeking refuge, we approached the house. A lady named Mrs. Adler, a librarian from the nearby town, greeted us. She was staying there to research the history of the area. We also met Robert, a retired police detective, who was the inn's owner. He graciously offered us a room. As night fell, eerie phenomena began. Shadows moved across walls, and soft murmurs echoed from the lake. Emma and I, huddled together in bed, watched in horror as ghostly figures danced on the water's edge. Over breakfast, Robert and Mrs. Adler discussed the supernatural activities. Robert revealed that Echo Lake was the site of a terrible tragedy in the 1920s. A steamboat, filled with passengers, had caught fire and sunk, taking countless lives. Mrs. Adler had uncovered articles detailing the event. The boat's owner had cut corners, resulting in the use of faulty equipment. The ghosts, it seemed, were the unfortunate souls who had perished due to this negligence. Robert, with his detective instincts still sharp, suggested we delve deeper. Together, the four of us visited the local archives, seeking answers. Old photographs showed joyous passengers, oblivious to their impending doom. Their faces, especially that of the sorrowful man we had encountered on the road, became etched in our minds. Through mediums and seances, we communicated with the spirits, understanding their plight. They wanted acknowledgement and a proper memorial. Using Mrs. Adler's research and the testimonies from the spirit world, we publicized the true story of Echo Lake's tragic past. The community rallied together, erecting a monument to honor the departed. As the memorial stood tall by the lake, the hauntings gradually decreased. The souls, it seemed, had found their peace. Our car repaired, Emma and I left the inn, our world forever altered. Every time I pass Echo Lake, I remember the spirits and the lesson they imparted, that even in death, the quest for justice and acknowledgement continues. Story number 3. Mysteries of Silverwood Lake, the Lost Souls of Suburban Los Angeles. Summer of 2003. A time which, rather than evoking memories of sunshine and carefree laughter, brings back chilling remembrances. It was the summer I encountered the otherworldly, and the weight of the past made itself known in the most terrifying manner. My best friend, Ray, and I had decided to take a scenic drive through the woods of suburban Los Angeles. As we ventured deeper, the evening started to set in. Lost in our chatter, a spectral vision, a young girl with haunting blue eyes, materialized in front of our car. I slammed on the brakes, but not in time to avoid veering off the road into a ditch. Our car was incapacitated, and we found ourselves stranded as darkness fell. In the distance, the silhouette of a house appeared beside a lake. With no other option, we decided to head towards it, hoping for shelter. As we approached, the Silverwood Lodge sign creaked in the evening wind. The house had an air of abandonment, but the lights were on. We were welcomed by Helena, a historian, who was staying there to study the area's rich history. We were also introduced to Jonah, a local fisherman familiar with the lake's stories. While the house seemed welcoming, as night wrapped its dark veil, ghostly apparitions began to manifest. Figures walked on the lake's surface, their mournful wails disturbing the silence. The young girl we had seen earlier appeared outside our window, her gaze piercing the night. Terrified, Ray and I sought answers. Helena shared a dark tale from the 1950s. A school bus, carrying children on a field trip, had tragically plunged into the lake, leaving no survivors. Jonah corroborated the story, mentioning how some locals had reported seeing apparitions on the road, leading to numerous accidents over the years. Determined to uncover the truth and, if possible, offer some respite to these restless spirits, we decided to investigate. We explored local archives, discovered old newspaper clippings, and even conducted a nighttime vigil by the lake. From our efforts, a horrifying revelation emerged. The bus's brakes had failed due to poor maintenance, a fact that had been covered up by influential individuals. The souls of the children remained, their cries for justice echoing across the decades. Ray and I, with Helena and Jonah's help, brought the cover-up to light. A memorial was erected by the lake, inscribed with the names of every child lost in the tragedy. Vigils were held, and over time, the hauntings lessened. By the time we left Silverwood Lodge, the spirits seemed at peace, their haunting presence replaced by a somber tranquility. Even today, as I recall those events, I'm reminded of the heavy cost of negligence and the lingering cries for justice. The ghosts of Silverwood Lake taught me that some stories, no matter how old, demand to be heard. Story number 4. The phantom fog of Golden Gate Heights, echoes from the abyss. The year was 2004, the year I remember not for its joyful milestones but for a chilling encounter that would remain etched in my psyche forever. San Francisco, with its iconic bridges and trams, was our chosen vacation spot that year. My sister Lisa and I were driving through a beautiful, hilly suburb of the city. As the sun set, a dense fog enveloped us, typical for the Bay Area. But what wasn't typical was the sudden apparition of a ghostly figure on the road. I tried to dodge it, but the panic caused me to crash into a nearby tree. Shaken and stranded, we noticed the faint lights of a house through the dense mist. A wooden sign hung at the entrance, reading Lakeside Retreat. With our car inoperable, we decided to seek shelter there. The home was owned by Mrs. Lorraine, a retired schoolteacher with a deep knowledge of local history. We were also introduced to Samuel, a journalist researching mysterious phenomena. He was there chasing stories of spectral sightings around the lake, which had piqued our interest given our recent experience. As night deepened, the fog grew denser around the house. Chilling wails echoed from the lake, and ghostly figures flitted between the trees. Among them was the same apparition we'd seen on the road. Desperate for answers, we prodded Mrs. Lorraine, who hesitantly shared a tragic tale from the 1930s. A school excursion train, traveling through the suburb, had derailed and plunged into the lake. The accident was blamed on the notorious fogs of the area, but there were whispers of foul play. Samuel had been gathering evidence. He'd found old telegrams and letters pointing to a potential sabotage, hinting at a conspiracy to discredit the train company for a competitor's gain. The four of us decided to organize a séance to communicate with the spirits. The message from the other side was clear. They wanted the truth to be revealed and to be remembered. With Mrs. Lorraine's knowledge, Samuel's research, and our determination, we pieced together the full story. The sabotage theory gained weight. We took our findings to the authorities. Over the next months, a memorial was erected near the lake, commemorating the lost souls. As it stood tall, casting its shadow on the water, the spectral appearances grew rare and then ceased altogether. As Lisa and I departed from the city, we left behind not just a vacation memory but a tale of tragedy, conspiracy, and restless spirits. I frequently reminisce about that summer, reminded that sometimes, the past refuses to be buried, echoing through time in search of justice. Story number 5. Whispers of Everglades Manor, the Shadows of Coral Lake. The events of 2005 in a secluded Miami suburb remain a chilling chapter in my life. A vacation meant for relaxation became a journey through Miami's spectral past. It was the start of summer when my cousin Alex and I decided to explore Miami's lesser-known suburbs. But as night approached, a fog unlike the typical Miami humidity enveloped our car. Suddenly, a ghostly apparition, a man with hollow eyes, appeared on the road, causing me to swerve and crash the car into a signpost. With our car damaged and darkness intensifying, we spotted the lights of Everglades Manor, an old residence-turned-hotel, near Coral Lake. With little choice, we decided to approach it. The innkeeper, Rosa, a former librarian with vast local knowledge, greeted us. We also met Vincent, an underwater archaeologist studying the lake's submerged structures. As the night progressed, unsettling occurrences began. Whispered voices echoed through the hallways, shadowy figures paced by the lake, and the ghost we'd encountered on the road appeared outside our window, pointing towards the lake. Shaken, we sought answers. Rosa shared a tragic tale from the 1960s. A grand party at the manor ended in disaster when the ground gave way, plunging many guests into the lake due to a sinkhole. The manor was abandoned, and those who perished were said to haunt the area, particularly the road leading to it. Vincent had discovered submerged remnants of the manor's foundations, suggesting the sinkhole might not have been a natural occurrence. There were signs of excavation, indicating someone might have intentionally caused the disaster. With Rosa's archival knowledge, Vincent's discoveries, and our growing curiosity, Alex and I started connecting the dots. We found old photographs, diaries, and letters revealing a motive, a bitter property feud that led to a tragic sabotage. To appease the restless spirits and ensure their stories weren't forgotten, we held a candlelight vigil by the lake. Local authorities were made aware of our findings, leading to a proper memorial being built on the site. As we left Everglades Manor, the apparitions seemed to have found peace, no longer trapped in a perpetual loop of their tragic end. Today, when I reminisce about that Miami trip, I'm reminded of the interwoven threads of envy, tragedy, and the eternal quest for justice. The spirits of Everglades Manor taught me that the weight of untold stories can be heavier than the most tangible of chains. Story number 6. Eerie Echoes of Lake Lucerne, Orlando's Unearthed Nightmare. The summer of 2006 was supposed to be the pinnacle of adventure for me and my friend Mark. Orlando, with its theme parks and lively spirit, was our target. However, destiny took us on a detour to the haunted shores of Lake Lucerne. I still vividly recall the evening sky dyed with crimson hues as we drove through a quiet Orlando suburb. Out of nowhere, the phantom image of a little girl holding a tattered teddy bear flashed in front of our car. Startled, I lost control, causing the car to skid off to the roadside, narrowly missing a massive oak. Disoriented and shaken, we assessed the situation and found our car severely damaged. As nightfall approached, the glimmering lights of a nearby house beckoned us. A sign at the entrance read, "Lucerne Lakeside Lodging." Upon our entry, we met Clara, an amateur historian, and Robert, a retired police officer with an interest in unsolved cases. They too had experienced similar eerie incidents around the lake. As darkness intensified, so did the paranormal activities. Ethereal figures, including the little girl, paced the shores, their mournful cries echoing across the lake. Seeking answers, Clara recounted a horrific incident from the 1980s. A school bus, en route to a field trip, had tragically plunged into Lake Lucerne due to brake failure, leaving no survivors. The incident was deemed a tragic accident, but Robert, who had just started his career back then, always felt there was more to the story. Uniting our skills, we began our investigation. Mark and I discovered an old treehouse overlooking the lake with children's drawings depicting the bus and an ominous figure sabotaging its brakes. Clara unearthed newspaper articles indicating a disgruntled mechanic who was fired for negligence just days before the tragedy. Robert recalled rumors of this mechanic swearing vengeance against the school. Pooling our findings, the narrative became clear. the souls haunting Lake Lucerne were victims of a revenge plot gone terribly awry. To honor them and seek redemption, we conducted a lakeside ceremony, releasing lanterns in their memory. Local authorities, alerted by our discoveries, revisited the case. They eventually apprehended the now-aged mechanic, bringing closure to the spirits and their families. Today, as I think back to that haunting Orlando adventure, I'm reminded of the thin line between the world of the living and the dead. The spirits of Lake Lucerne were desperate for their stories to be heard, and we, in our quest for a summer thrill, became their unwitting listeners. Story number 7. Whispers of Lake Mojave, the shadows beneath Sin City. Las Vegas, the city of lights, was an unexpected starting point for the most harrowing experience of my life. The year was 2007, and my colleague Sam and I decided to drive to a rumored oasis just outside the city. A supposed escape from the hustle and bustle. The sun was setting, casting long shadows on the road, when an ethereal figure, a woman in tattered clothes, appeared right in front of us. Panicking, I swerved the car, which led to a collision with a nearby boulder. Stranded, with the city's skyline barely visible in the distance, we were fortunate to stumble upon a secluded home overlooking Lake Mojave, branded as Mojave Moonlit Retreat. We were met by Diana, an investigative journalist, and Peter, a geologist who was studying the unique rock formations in the area. As dusk settled, the house's porch provided front-row seats to a spectral parade, ghostly figures emerging from the lake, wandering aimlessly. Diana shared whispers of an old sunken town beneath Lake Mojave's depths, which was flooded intentionally in the 1920s for the creation of the lake. Rumor had it that not everyone evacuated in time. Peter, having studied the area, presented maps of underground tunnels and mining shafts suggesting that there might have been last-minute escape attempts during the flooding. Our collective intrigue fueled a midnight investigation. Venturing to the lakeside, we discovered the entrance to a half-submerged mining shaft. Inside, we found personal belongings, diaries, and photographs of families, evidence of a life once lived. One particular diary entry from a woman named Eliza described the terror of the rising waters and the desperation as she and her family tried to flee through the tunnels. The date on that entry? The very night the town was flooded. The pieces fit together. The apparition on the road was Eliza, leading people to the truth of what transpired all those years ago. To offer some semblance of peace, we held a lakeside vigil, paying respects to those trapped beneath. After the sun rose, we notified authorities about our findings. The story became national news, with the spirits of Lake Mojave finally acknowledged and remembered. Driving back to Vegas, the weight of the city's hidden history pressed heavily on me. Sin City's shimmering facade concealed darker stories, tales that were begging to be brought to light, and I had inadvertently become a part of one. Story number 8. Echoes of Waipahu, the spirits beyond the palms. In the summer of 2008, I set out on a journey to explore the tranquility of Hawaii, far from the well-trodden paths of Waikiki. My travel companion, Jenna, was equally eager to experience the island's secrets. Driving along the outskirts of Honolulu, amidst dense foliage and winding roads, an apparition of a child, clutching a tattered doll, suddenly materialized before us. Shocked, I veered the car off the road, crashing into a coconut tree. After regaining our composure, and with our car in disrepair, we stumbled upon a secluded home, Lanai Lau, nestled beside a pristine lake, with an open sign indicating it was a retreat for travelers. Upon renting the house for the night, we met Keanu, a historian, and Moana, an ethnobotanist. That evening, under the canopy of stars, we witnessed spectral visions, islanders, fishermen, and hula dancers, echoing tales of yesteryears around the lake. Keanu, with a solemn expression, spoke of an old settlement that once thrived by the lake. It was razed down by colonialists, and the native Hawaiians were forcibly evacuated, causing many to perish. Moana showed us unique plants near the lake, ones that the ancient islanders considered sacred. These plants, she believed, held the memories of the dead and were a bridge to the spirit world. Determined to uncover the full story, Jenna and I, along with our newfound companions, delved deep into the island's archives the next day. We unearthed newspapers and journals describing a rebellion against the settlers, resulting in a tragic massacre by the lake. Connecting the dots, it was clear that the apparition we'd encountered was trying to lead us to the truth, seeking justice for the forgotten souls. Resolving to give voice to the silenced, we organized a puja at the lakeside, with island elders narrating tales of the fallen heroes. The retreat turned into a pilgrimage site, a place of remembrance for the lost spirits. Upon leaving the islands, I realized that Hawaii was not just about sun-kissed beaches but also about deep-rooted history and spirits longing to be acknowledged. Story number 9. Whispers of Woodland, the haunting shadows of the Evergreen State. In 2009, the year I'll never forget, I embarked on a journey to the luscious evergreen forests near Washington with my best friend, Lucas. We were looking to escape the city's hustle and to delve deep into nature's embrace. On our drive, amidst the towering pines and the chirping of the crickets, a hazy silhouette of a woman in a colonial-era dress abruptly emerged, causing me to swerve and crash into a nearby tree. Gathering our senses, and with the vehicle inoperable, we ventured forth on foot. The evening mist led us to a secluded woodland lodge named Evergreen Elegance, perched beside a serene lake. With no other options, we decided to rent a room for the night. The lodge's caretaker, an elderly man named Nathaniel, seemed to bear the weight of 1,000 secrets. There was also a journalist, Clara, who had been staying there, researching old folklore. That night, eerie manifestations began. Faint voices echoed, we saw spectral miners near the forest, and a phantom steamboat glided across the lake. Clara, having observed similar phenomena, shared clippings of a mine collapse from the 19th century where numerous workers tragically lost their lives. The lake, it appeared, was the burial ground for many, after an unknown epidemic had swept through a nearby settlement. With Nathaniel as our reluctant guide, and Clara documenting our findings, Lucas and I started investigating. At the heart of the forest, we uncovered the remnants of a mining camp. Nathaniel finally confessed his ancestor had been the mine's proprietor, who had prioritized profits over safety, leading to the catastrophe. The spirits, bound by the anguish of their untimely demise, sought recognition and justice. To pacify the restless souls, we, along with the locals, held a memorial service, acknowledging the misdeeds and honoring the memories of the departed. The events of that trip have stayed with me, teaching me that some places hold deep scars, yearning to be healed. Every time I drive, the haunting echoes of the forest remind me of the histories buried, waiting to be unearthed. Story number 10. The Windy City Whispers, Secrets of Lake Linwood. In 2010, a cold November evening, my sister Amelia and I set out for a leisurely drive through the Chicago suburbs. It was meant to be a calming diversion from our bustling urban life. But as they say, life rarely goes as planned. I was driving through a particularly dense wooded patch when an apparition of a man in old, soot-covered work clothes abruptly manifested. Panic took over, I veered off, narrowly missing a massive oak but clipping the car's side. Stranded, we walked on, seeking help. The universe led us to Linwood Lodge, nestled next to the almost eerily still Lake Linwood. We decided to stay the night. There were 2 other occupants, Raymond, an old fisherman who had tales as vast as the seas, and Eliza, an archaeologist excavating nearby sites. The night was anything but peaceful. We heard mournful chants, saw fleeting images of laborers on the lakeside, and a ghostly train seemed to pass on unseen tracks. Eliza, over breakfast, revealed she had unearthed artifacts indicating a major rail and construction site from the late 1800s nearby. Many workers had lost their lives due to a tragic accident. Their mass grave was found submerged within Lake Linwood. Raymond recollected old village tales, speaking of how the lake was considered cursed, for anyone who ventured deep would hear the cries of those departed souls. Intrigued and wanting to give those souls peace, Amelia and I joined Eliza in her investigations. The deeper we delved, the clearer the picture became. It turned out there was a major cover-up by the rail company, which chose the lake as an easy way to hide evidence of their negligence. Together, with Raymond's support, we set up a memorial near the lake. A ceremony was conducted, where the village came together to pay their respects. Though we came to Chicago for a simple vacation, we left with a mission accomplished, giving a voice to the silenced. To this day, every time I hear a train whistle, I remember those restless souls and hope they found the peace they were denied in life. Story number 11. Ghosts of Grief Past, the Shadows of Lake Lancaster. My heart still trembles, recollecting that ominous night in 2011. The journey, intended to be a peaceful weekend getaway in the calm suburbs of Boston, turned into a terrifying experience that would forever etch itself into my memories. I was driving, my lifelong friend Daniel beside me, with anticipation of a serene escape away from our hectic city lives. Unexpectedly, a horrifyingly gaunt figure, shrouded in tattered clothing, suddenly appeared in our path. Swerving to avoid collision, I lost control, and our car collided with a large rock. Shaken, we stumbled upon a secluded house hotel, quaintly titled Lancaster's Rest, nestled beside the somber Lake Lancaster. Exhausted, we rented a room, hoping for a tranquil night to shake off our traumatic incident. As the darkness enveloped the forest, ghostly figures, echoes of despair, and spectral apparitions on the lake disturbed our peace, turning our refuge into a haunted nightmare. The next morning, we met Caroline, a historian with a particular interest in local legends, and Robert, a retired firefighter who claimed to have witnessed paranormal activities around the area since a devastating fire many decades ago. His tales of spectral flames and ghostly cries sent shivers down our spines. Caroline revealed that in the late 19th century, Lake Lancaster was the site of a tragic factory fire that claimed numerous lives, many of whom were children. She believed that their unsettled spirits lingered, entwined with the trauma of their untimely demise. Our eerie experiences, paired with their tales, propelled us to dig deeper into the mystery. We delved into archives, old news articles, and personal journals from descendants of the fire survivors. The investigation unveiled the dark truth: the factory owners, to avoid financial ruin, had concealed the true cause of the fire, which was due to their negligence and refusal to adhere to safety regulations. With sorrowful hearts, Daniel and I, along with Caroline and Robert, resolved to honor those forgotten souls. Collaborating with local authorities, we erected a memorial and conducted a commemorative service, acknowledging the lost lives and recognizing their undeserved fate. The night of the service, standing by the lake, we witnessed an ethereal spectacle. The faint, translucent figures that once roamed in despair now emanated a gentle, peaceful glow, bowing in gratitude before fading into the abyss. In giving them recognition, acknowledgement, and a resting memory in our world, we felt a serene calmness envelop the once tormented Lancaster's Rest. Now, every year, we gather there, honoring their memories, offering tranquility not just to them, but to the lost, wandering souls we all carry within us, lighting a flame of remembrance and solace amidst the dark shadows of the past. Story number 12. Echoes from Whispering Pines, The Haunting of Lake Loxley. In 2012, a summer trip to the suburban outskirts of Philadelphia revealed a chilling secret, forever sealing the memories of that night into my psyche. I was driving with my friend Clara on a road meandering through a dense forest when the terrifying visage of a woman, eyes hollow, dress drenched, flashed before us. The shock caused me to veer off course, scraping our car against a gnarled oak. Distressed, we stumbled upon the Loxley Lodge, a vintage house hotel by Lake Loxley. We hoped it would serve as a sanctuary from the unsettling events of the day. How wrong we were. As the night's velvet cloak draped the landscape, spectral figures rose from the waters, their mournful whispers echoing through the woods, their tormented silhouettes casting horrifying reflections on the lake's surface. At breakfast, we met Martin, a journalist with an insatiable curiosity about local myths, and Eleanor, a psychic medium with ancestral roots in the region. They had both been drawn to the Loxley Lodge, sensing the unresolved spirits that roamed there. Martin shared clippings that spoke of a grand ball held at the lodge in the early 1900s. A magnificent event turned deadly when a fire, sparked by a faulty chandelier, engulfed the premises. The owners, desperate to maintain the reputation of their establishment, suppressed the news, turning the tragedy into a mere footnote in history. Guided by Eleanor's spiritual connection, we ventured into the woods, discovering the remnants of the burned ballroom, long concealed by nature. The air grew heavy as Eleanor communicated with the spirits, unveiling their anguish over the betrayal and their longing for acknowledgement. Together, the four of us orchestrated a memorial ceremony, inviting the descendants of those lost and the community to partake. The event culminated with the release of lanterns onto Lake Loxley, symbolizing the release of trapped souls. That night, the once tormented spirits graced us with a final, poignant dance on the shimmering waters before fading away in a cascade of luminous wisps. While the Loxley Lodge remains a testament to the past, it's no longer a realm of sorrow. However, every time I pass a reflective water body, I recall those souls, praying they found the peace they deserved. Story number 13. The Shadows of Raven's Hollow. I still remember that sweltering summer of 2013, the trip that changed my perspective on reality forever. My partner, Alex, and I had embarked on a journey through the suburbs of Dallas. But as the sun dipped and dusk approached, something inexplicable occurred. I was driving, with the quiet hum of the car and the soft tunes of the radio creating a calming ambience. Out of nowhere, the piercing eyes of a spectral figure emerged in front of our vehicle. It was so sudden, so unexpected, I swerved, avoiding the apparition but ending up in a ditch, damaging our car. Stranded and shaken, we soon found solace in Havenwood Inn, a quaint hotel nestled beside the serene Lake Lenore. Its isolated location in the woods was both its charm and, as we discover, its curse. After dinner, while trying to calm our nerves, we met Sarah, an archaeologist who had been studying ancient settlements around the area, and David, a local historian with a deep knowledge of Dallas's dark tales. That night, the woods and lake came alive, not with the sounds of nature, but with restless spirits, their silhouettes haunting the landscape, their whispers becoming discernible cries for justice. Over breakfast, David shared a dark story. Back in the late 1800s, the land around Lake Lenore was home to a thriving community. But greed led outsiders to claim the valuable territory, resulting in a bloody massacre. The dead, not given proper burials, were said to wander, seeking vindication. Sarah showed us artifacts she'd uncovered, confirming the existence of this lost community and hinting at the horrors they'd faced. Together, the four of us decided to bring peace to these restless souls. Through a combination of David's historical accounts and Sarah's archaeological finds, we identified possible burial sites. One night, with a ritual combining both modern and ancient customs, we sought to give these spirits their long overdue acknowledgement and rest. The experience was surreal. As the wind howled and the lake's waters raged, there was a moment of calm where the spirits, illuminated by the moon's glow, seemed to nod in gratitude before dissipating into the ether. Our journey had started as a simple trip but had become a mission to mend the wrongs of the past. The Havenwood Inn still stands by Lake Lenore, a beacon for travelers. But the shadows of Raven's Hollow, as the area is now known, no longer loom with malevolence. Every time I recount this tale, I'm reminded of our responsibility to history, to the stories buried beneath our feet, and the power of acknowledgement and redemption.